For a year, you had these restrictions, these bail restrictions. So that
Yeah.
happened.
Well, we were going backwards and forwards to court. We went back 2 or 3 times, just to kind of fill things out. All defendants were in court for the one particular sitting, and that was hilarious because we'd been on a march the week before, and I think it might have been into fauna. There's a beagle breed in place, and I think we were there and we were all talking. We weren't supposed to be talking, but all of us were talking. It's like madness, like, don't talk to me, do talk to me, don't talk to me, do talk to me. Oh, watch that CCTV. Oh, hello. I don't know who it was. I don't know whose idea this was to do this, but I thought it was genius. Somebody had got T-shirts printed with Boots 43, Boots Torture Beagles, with an activist, ALF activist, with a beagle like that, and then the Boots 43, and then Boots Torture Beagles. And they were the cheapest T-shirts, and they got orange writing on them, and then blue, the blue Boots logo, and then these two beagles with these two hooded activists. So we all bought one each. And so we all of us had these T-shirts on. So we decided to go into court, the 43 of us, wearing these T-shirts. All of us. And we put them all on, and we all stood up. The judge, he went, "Oh, I will not stand for this in this courtroom. Whose idea was this?" And we all stood there silently. None of us said a word. Boots Torture Beagles. There it was, all of us, all 43 defendants. And get this, the solicitor was really sympathetic, and he goes, "I'm going to wear one. I'm going to wear one." So he put one on, and the judge went, "Oh, you've got one on. This is ridiculous." So it was like this whole kind of group of people, and just as he thought he got some sympathy off the solicitor, no, the solicitor had got one over his suit, and his hair was pulled back in a ponytail. So sympathetic was he. He loved all of us. He thought we were ace. He just said, "Oh, what a great group of people." He said, "You're just fantastic." And he actually got quite involved in the whole thing. He went on to do animal rights stuff himself. He was so interested in it and so got what was being said. And so he said, "No, I'm as proud as Punch." But the judge said, "I cannot. We've got to stop this. I'm holding the court to close basically until you take your T-shirts off." So a few of them I decided to keep mine on, and I thought, no, I'm not going to take mine off. But loads of people took them off, and loads of people still wearing them. They just said, "No, we're going to carry on." And so that's what we did. You had these people kind of dotted around going, "All right then." And then you had other people going, "No, I'm sticking to my T-shirt. I'm not taking this off for no one." And so that was lovely. And that was actually quite a powerful moment when all of us stood up together. There was a real sense of real solidarity that whatever was going to happen, that we would all face it together. And that was quite a moving moment, to be part of something bigger. That's where it really does count. Yeah, that was quite a lovely moment. A bit like a film.
It sounds really pivotal, especially
yes, it was.
A young, impressionable girl.
Yes.
Woman, it's like absolutely, it's the sort of thing that would be implanted in your brain, in the very fibre of your being.
Very much so. And then the one time when we had to go for another court appearance, I remember dressing up quite nicely, and the court usher, he said to me, "Oh, you look very nice." And I said, "Well, I'm here to represent the animals." And he just shut up like a clam, just shut up. He didn't say anything, didn't do anything. He just walked away from me. And that's what I was doing it for. Everything, getting dressed to go to that kind of court case, and actually thinking to yourself, no, I'm doing this for the animals. I'm doing it for what we saw that day, which was all those innocent dogs being put to death, and so I always went into court with that in mind. I never altered from that.
So, what happened after you'd been to court the required number of times? Were there
charges? Sadly, in a sense, it all got dropped. I mean, it was good in one sense, but not in another. We really wanted to push this, and of course, if some people had gone to prison, then of course it would have pushed it even more. And I could see where John and people like Angie and other activists and campaigners at that time, what they were trying to achieve was putting it into the mass populace and into the public's area personas of what is and what isn't. We live in such a society that lies all the time about what it does, that when you expose one small part of it, you realise that, there's so much that some public don't even want to know, but there are people who do want to know. There are more bright, intelligent people out there that do want to know what is actually going on. So I could see where the older activists, where they were coming from. So when it kind of wasn't going to go forward any further, they basically wrote and said it's being dropped. But that was really due to pressure from us with the Boots company. They didn't want the publicity from it. They said they didn't want the publicity from it, and they could see what we were trying to do. Because every single march we went on, Pamela, at that time, we wore our Boots t-shirts all the time. And we went outside every single Boots, and it would be, "Boots torture beagles, boycott Boots, Boots torture beagles, boycott Boots, murderers, murderers." And it would be like that constantly. And that would be on any march that we went on. As soon as we went outside of Boots, it would start, "Boots torture beagles." And then what we decided to do was we decided to all buy shares in Boots. It was only £1 a share. I didn't have this idea. It was another activist that did, a long-term activist, brilliant activist. He said, right, to really kick this down the road, I reckon we buy shares, we can go to the AGMs. Woohoo, woohoo! Feel another protest coming on and some aggro. So anyway, I thought to myself, right, roll up my sleeves for this one. And so we all bought a share, and we got a big minibus, and my hair was shaved really short. I was 19 at this point, and this had been going on for quite some time, this campaign. Anyway, so we all went. There was nothing they could do about it legally. Not a thing could they do. They tried so hard as a company to try and do anything they could to stop us, but they couldn't for this. So anyway, so it was a penny a share. And so we went in there, and all hell broke loose. That we got onto the gantries, up onto the top. I can remember with another activist putting a banner over the side of the inside the building. You got a second landing up. It was like in almost like a big kind of conference centre. And I got my Boots t-shirt on, hair shaved really short, and we dropped this banner over, "Boots torture beagles." Huge fuck off banner it was. And we were going, "Boots torture beagles, boycott Boots, Boots torture beagles, boycott Boots." murderers, scum, 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 and everybody was shouting, scum, 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 and all these guys in posh suits were sat there kind of going, oh my God, you know, oh Jesus, it was like a massive load of pirates had just arrived, you know, like, rah! And you got all these people, members of the board, all sitting there watching this kind of chaos ensue, you know, and then there was, you know, it would go quiet, and then you'd have a protester in the audience, another one, another one, another one, another one, and they'd all stand up. And then security would come in, we got dragged. I'm trying to hold on to the furniture, the chairs, we were going like that. No, no, no. And they were pulling us, holding us by our hair, pulling us by our clothing. We were still shouting as we were being led out, you know, boycott boots. And we'd have like banners and boards, and, you know, they'd be ripped out of our hands, you know, and it was chaos. But what a beautiful chaos it was. It was fantastic to be a part of it. And I mean, you really had to have some balls to do it, because you knew you were going to get roughed up. And certainly as a woman, you did. You would definitely get more roughed up than the blokes would. That was a cert. That was a definite. Security guards would definitely go for you more, and they certainly did then.
That sounds kind of, I mean, counterintuitive, because a lot of people would think, well, surely they'd leave the women alone because the women are smaller, and, you know, and you have actually got a disability that you know.
Oh no, that wouldn't matter. I think they thought, whoa, she's got a disability, but she's like, oh, she's a bit spiky. And so I think that they were quite wary as well at the same time, but nevertheless, they would definitely go gunning more for the women than they would for the blokes. So definitely could be rougher. There's no question. But then we were kind of up for that as well. We weren't afraid of that. And I think a lot of women activists aren't afraid of that. If you enter into that, then you know that there's a certainty that you are going to get roughed up. And, you know, and that's fair enough. That's part of the deal. Your hair pulled. I mean, I didn't have long hair, so it was great for me. But if I had an item of clothing, then they could pull you back. There was always something given out at demos. Don't ever wear hooded tops. Don't wear hooded tops. And if you've got long hair, tie it in a way that they can't grab it, or put it under a hat. And that was well versed, that was well known what to do if you find yourself in a run on or something like that where you knew security was going to be. You would tie your hair in a certain way, put a hood up rather than leave it hanging loose. Don't, because they've got a habit of pulling you back and using that as a weapon against you. So you could be floundering while they've got actually hold of you. That was something that was really well known. A lot of girls had their hair short, so that was no problem. But then you'd be called lesbians, you'd be called dykes, you'd be called this, you'd be called that. So you'd have that in on top of it as well.
Did you sort of like talk to each other about that?
Yeah, we did. We did, and we were overjoyed sometimes with it. If it went really well, we were overjoyed. And it was a wonderful feeling. It was very liberating to kind of get pushed around, because you knew that was kind of partly what you were there for. So you kind of galvanized yourself into that situation. You stood with your brothers, you stood with your fellow activists, your male activists. So you were very much part. Don't get me wrong, they would look out for us, but women could hold their own too. And there was a great strength within that, shall we say. I used to have conversations with people and go, oh, bollocks, look at this. Shit, are we really going to do this? Yeah, of course we are. Are you coming or not? Yeah. Oh, man. And your heart would be in your mouth, here. Yeah, I'll be there in a minute. but you know, we were up for it. You were up for it, and if you were up for it, then you went prepared for it. So you would wear certain things that you knew you know you didn't mind getting ripped, or you didn't mind, you know, as I said, getting pulled around. Some people would, so that wouldn't be their bag. But certainly, where you were trying to put pressure on a company like Boots, yeah, you were there to be serious, you know. And there was a lot of girls there that were extremely brave, you know, and knew, and a lot of women that knew exactly what to do and how to do it, and would use pretty much their own force back, you know. Legs and arms would definitely come a flying, and they weren't afraid to use their no nonsense kicking leg. Yeah, you would be up for that, and you wouldn't shy away from it.
What about like things like police retaliation or brutality? Were you not sort of concerned about that?
That wasn't a thing at that time. It wasn't a thing. If you were inside Boots, it wasn't a thing. I experienced that later on, and I'd seen it before. It's the worst I've ever seen it, which was really quite shocking, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this. I went and stayed with a girl, a woman, at her caravan, and this was shocking. Total brutality. And she had got dogs in the back of her van at the time that had been nicked, and she drove through a police cordon and had to use a stinger on the road to burst the tyres. Suffice to say, they got the dogs and they dragged her out of the vehicle, and they kicked her all over the place. Kicked her all over the place. She phoned me, and I went to stay with her. The night I got into bed next to her, and she showed me all her bruises, her arms, her legs. They were like pieces of meat. Yeah, it was terrible. And I wept because she was such a brave warrior, and it was dreadful. She was my sister, and she still is. And it was dreadful when she showed me the shock that went through me. It was total police brutality, and that was the first time I'd ever seen anything as raw, on such a beautiful woman, beautiful soul, one of the gentlest, hardcore individuals you're ever likely to meet, heart in the right place. And I couldn't, when she pulled down her jogging bottoms, I could have been sick. That was very hard, very hard. Yeah, and when I got into bed with her and I held her, yeah, it was very hard.
That horrific experience that the sister had experienced, the other woman had experienced when you saw that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't make you think anything like, well, maybe I should be a bit more careful and not be involved in this.
No, to be honest, if anything, it made me feel outraged, anger, if you like. That's what it made me feel. I felt very, very angry. I felt the amalgamation of everything I'd ever seen up to that point. And it was really weird, Pamela, because, you know, I've been this really, really devoted animal protection, animal rights activist who loved life and loved people. And certainly within my vegan family, I did. It was like all of a sudden, all these images were coming through my brain of the dogs, the animals I'd seen from laboratories, scarred, broken, injured, and then looking at her body, black and bruised. And I can just remember thinking, all of that flashed past me, and I thought, you total absolute bunch of fucking bastards. And it didn't make me feel I wanted to be careful. It made me rage against the brutality of all of it. That was just a symptom of the brutality of what I'd seen but done on another species. It wasn't anything separate. I just thought, well, this is more of the same. This is just done on my own species, and that's what made me furious, absolutely furious. And I felt very, very upset. And what was worse was I felt so upset for her, because what she tried to do was so brave, taking animals, and trying to get them to safety, only to be treated like that. It just fed into the whole horror. And going from animal aid in Kidderminster to this was just like, Jesus, Jesus, really? Really? Did you have to do that? That's where it was in my head. I almost felt down about it, that they could treat women like this. How dare you do this? You showed total disrespect for so many activist women, so many, right through history. Women activists have been treated appallingly. And it's no good saying that they have, because I haven't. If you go right back to the suffragettes, it's exactly the same, force-fed in prison, beaten, kicked, humiliated, you name it, they went through it. Some of them even died, and you just look and think, fuck me. That really does get you round the throat. Still very young in this, I was still in my late teens, so for me to come across that, and for me to be as sensitive as I was as well, and that was another learning curve, looking at somebody who's, you couldn't even touch her legs, they were that painful. You learn very quickly to grow up, to deal with things that you see, and they stay with you. But that was the first brutality that I saw.
Like just about a year or a couple of years after you started your whole.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were things happening all the time regarding the ALF, all the time, and I'm no great knowledge in this, because there were activists that were older than me, and they were doing stuff all the time. You'd see it in the media, you'd see it in the papers, you'd see it on the telly. Oh, this place has been burned down. That place, oh God, that place has been daubed. Butchers have been damaged. There was so much work being done by all these little individuals, and then even bigger groups, as I said, like the Central Animal Liberation League and people like that, and the ALF. They were all doing stuff inside laboratories. I mean, it was a big thing. It was a big thing in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. Some things I can't talk about because I've not been prosecuted for them. But, and I'm sure there's lots of other people who fit that role as well, that they've done stuff and they've been very proud to do stuff. For us, it was a 24-hour thing as well. We would come here, there'd be animals here, there'd be dogs, there'd be cats, there'd be guinea pigs, there'd be rabbits, there'd be rats, there'd be mice, there'd be all kinds of animals within these four walls. And they would be all rescued. And a lot of the time it was us that was rescuing them. Going out with another couple of girls, people would be ringing up, the phone would be ringing off the hook, for can you help, can you do this, can you do that, activism type stuff. Yep, we'll be there. Where do you want us to meet? Puppy farms, we've been asked to try and help out with one particular dog that we had to go get up at 2:00 in the morning to go and help, and she could only understand Welsh, so we had to get an activist from Wales to speak to this collie dog that had got puppies. That was just one side of that activism, as well as the other side. It was 24/7 at that point. If it wasn't us getting into a garden somewhere trying to take a dog away because someone had said terrible suffering, we'd be doing all kinds of things, and it was a way of life. Yeah. It really was a way of life.
I think it's interesting, the whole way of life thing, the whole sort of like, you were living this activist life. And how long did that go on for?
It really ended when I met Ronnie, if I'm honest. A lot of that I didn't do. So I would have said I was probably about 22 when I got more into doing the kind of rescue side of it, rescue with dogs and guinea pigs and rabbits, and got a house, and Ronnie as well. But then he was still doing, you know, the ALFSG stuff as well. So it was still all mixed up. We didn't split from that, the movement. It was just in another kind of form, demos going on and stuff we were still part of. That never ended, really. It's never really ended, if I'm honest. It's just a different form of it.